everyone, this is Pooja M. Kirao. I welcome you all to my online classes where you can learn free of cost. Then what are you waiting for? Just go and subscribe the subscribe button and hit the bell button too, as if you won't hit the bell button you won't be notified about my videos. So just hit the bell button. Now in my previous video of class 10, the rise of nationalism in Europe, I have explained you about the 4 prints given by the French artist Frederick Sorry, and what it was explaining the first figure and how they attained, how the French Revolution happened, what were the benefits, what were the advantages, how the Napoleonic rule started, what was the Napoleonic Code, each and everything, what were the advantages of the Napoleonic rule, what were the disadvantages, we have already explained in our previous video. Now it's time to learn further and to see what happens in the next and how the concept of nationalism were made in Europe. The making of nationalism in Europe. If you look at the map of mid-18th century, okay, I forgot to tell you that if you have not taken out your book, just go bring your book and take it out and read along with me, as I prefer line by line explanation, okay, so that you don't have any sort of problem when you are reading the lines of the book, as the thorough reading of the book will only give you knowledge, not by hearing to me. And even if you don't have the book, by hearing the line by line explanation given by me, you will be alert, or you will be aware of the knowledge which your book is providing you. So for that sake, I prefer to give line by line explanation. Okay, so I will request you all to take your books who are watching this video. Now if you look at the map of mid-18th century Europe, you will find that there were no nation state as we know them today. So in our previous video, I have explained you about what are the nation states and how they came into existence. The nation states actually came into existence because of nationalism. Now what are these nation states? Nation states are those states which are having the sovereign power to rule. They have all the political powers in their hands. So these are the nation states where the sovereign power rests upon the nation. So before in the mid-18th century, you won't find any nation states which used to exist in the Europe. All were under the monarchical rule. What we know today as Germany, Italy, Switzerland were divided into kingdom, duchies and cantons. Now kingdoms we know which were ruled by the influential king. Duchies, which were, what are the duchies? Duchies were also the territories which were ruled by the duke or duchess. So the word duchess has come from the word duke or duchess. And the cantons. Cantons are also a sort of territory which were, it's also a territory which comes under an absolutist monarchy. Okay, so whose rulers had their autonomous territories. So the power, their territory, the power was vested upon the ruler only, not to the citizens. Now what were the problems because of this type of rule, and what problem the people faced because of this type of rule, we will read in this paragraph. Eastern and Central Europe were under autocratic monarchies. Now autocratic monarchies, you can easily understand, it's a type of monarchical rule where the power is rested upon the ruler itself, none other than the ruler. Within the territories of which live diverse people. See, the rulers belong to a different caste or different, it represents some different type of people, where the people in his kingdom were diverse, means there used to live a different type of people in one territory. The ruler is speaking a different language, and the people in his territory, there were different linguist people who are having different type of linguistics, isn't it? So automatically there will rise a situation of chaos. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity. So as usual, they won't see them as a collective identity. They will think them as an alien only, alienated power. They did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. Often they even spoke different languages, as I have just explained you, even though they were speaking different languages, which made them feel more insecure about their culture and about their existence in a territory where the king is speaking different language and all the people of that kingdom are having different sort of languages. Okay. Often they even spoke different languages and belonged to different ethnic groups, and their groups were also different. Of the Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria-Hungary, for example, this is just an example. The Habsburg Empire, it has ruled over Austria-Hungary, was a patchwork of many different regions and people. It was a patchwork. Patchwork, you know, it's a work. Whenever you will make a work with a different type of patch, means you will add a patch of it can be of a cloth, it can be of a paper also. You will add a patch of red color, you will add a patch of patchwork of white color, yellow color, means mixed up work which is mixed up of different type of things. So it's called patchwork. So it's a patchwork of different regions and different people. So different peoples were there. So it's looking like it's resembling a patchwork, which is not similar in any form. Okay. So it included the Alpine regions, the Tyrol, Australia, and the Sudetenland, as well as Bohemia, where the aristocracy were predominantly German speaking. Wherever the aristocracy or the rich classes, aristocracy means rich classes, or the rulers you can say were the Germans. Okay, they were German speaking. It also included the Italian speaking provinces of Lombardy and Venetia. In Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar. So in Hungary, half of the population was speaking Magyar, while the other half spoke a variety of dialects. Variety of dialects means variety of languages. And the other half of the population or the nation were speaking different languages, different sort of linguistics. Okay. So in Galicia, the aristocracy spoke Polish. In Galicia, in a country called Galicia, the aristocracy or the rulers were speaking Polish language. Besides these three dominant groups, they also lived within the boundaries of the empire. A mass of subject peasants people, Bohemians and the Slovaks to the north, Slovenes in Carniola, Croats to the south, and Romans to the east in Transylvania. Such differences did not easily promote a sense of political unity. So in our present situation, our present country, you can see in India, we are having a national language, isn't it? So most of us, we know the national language, and it's the symbol of political unity that we all are having as a resident or as an Indian. So we can all speak Hindi as our national language. Okay, but if in a country it can have diversity, we can have diversity, but we don't know one single language, there will be a sort of chaos, isn't it? Diversity is common, but there should be a language which binds us politically, which unites us politically, so that we can be unified politically, isn't it? So in that condition, there were no such language which could have bind them politically. So there were no political unity. The only tie binding this diverse group together was a common allegiance to the emperor. So common allegiance means common respect to the emperor. They were just paying respect or their obedience to the emperor as a custom. Okay, that is only was a bond which were existing between all the people of that nation. Okay. Now, how did nationalism and the idea of nation state emerged? Now, we will learn how the idea of nationalism emerged in the brain of those people and what was the need and how the emergence of nation states came into existence. Okay. Now, first thing is the aristocracy and the middle class. Now, aristocracy, we know the aristocracy were the influential rulers of the country. Okay, wow, what's the middle class? Actually, the emergence of this middle class only has raised this nationalism in Europe. Okay, so that fight between the aristocracy and the middle class. Okay, now aristocracy, let's list further what does they are saying in this, the aristocracy and the new middle class. Socially and politically, a landed aristocracy was the dominant class on the continent. So socially means in social nature, in their society, and politically also this landed aristocracy. Now what does this term landed aristocracy, not democracy, sorry, aristocracy, landed aristocracy means? Landed aristocracy means aristocrat by birth, who are landed on this earth and became aristocrat by birth. Okay, so socially and politically this landed aristocracy was the dominant class, and they by birth only they were the dominant. They were dominating the other people of the country. They were having that nature. They can dominate the other people of the country. Okay, the members of this class were united by a common way of life cut across regional divisions. So the members of this class were united by a common way of life. So the member of this aristocrat class, they were having a common way and they were united. This aristocratic class, people of this aristocratic class were united the way they were leading their life in a common way. They will have some posh culture which will unite them. They will speak the language, the same language. They will have some land in the countryside, means in the villages also, and in the towns also. Okay, so let's read further what they are saying. They owned estates in the countryside, as I have said. They owned estates in the countryside and also townhouses. They spoke French for purpose of diplomacy and in high society. So they spoke French purposely, not normally, for purposely, and to show their diplomacy, to show their superiority over the others. Their families were often connected by ties of marriages. So they were connected, their families were connected by relations. How those relations came into existence? By ties of marriages, by the bond of marriages. This powerful aristocracy was, however, numerically a small group. The majority, now this aristocratic people were definitely should be some small group. They couldn't be a huge mass. So huge masses will be the poor person, who are the peasants, who are the serf, who are working as a serfdom. Okay, so the majority powerful aristocracy was, however, numerically a small group. The majority of the population was made up of peasants. To the west, the bulk of the land was farmed by tenants. So in the west, the land was farmed by the tenants and small owners. So in west, small owners will be there who will give their, who are the tenants, who will take rent of the land. Okay, so some landowners will be there, they will give that land to the rent. Some peasants will take them as a rent. Okay, while in Eastern and Central Europe, the pattern of land holding was characterized by vast estates which was cultivated by serfs. But in eastern sides, Central Europe, in the Eastern Central Europe, what will happen? The pattern of land holding was different. There were serfs who will do the cultivation. Serfs will have serfdom, will tell, right? Serfdom means they will have vast amount of land under them and will be cultivated by them. Okay. Now, in western part of Central Europe, the growth of industrial production and trade meant the growth of towns and emergence of commercial classes, whose existence was based on production for the market. Now, since the industrialization began, automatically the trading class came into existence, which were dependent on the production of the market, those class were dependent on the production of the market. Those are the business class. Okay, and these came into existence where in western and parts of Central Europe. The growth of industrial production, as I have just now explained you, that the industrialization or the growth of industrial production and trade meant the growth of towns, and it led to the growth of towns and the emergence of commercial class or the business class, whose existence was based on production for the market. Industrialization began in England in the second half of 18th century. When industrialization came into existence, second half of 18th century. Remember this industrialization came into existence in England after the second half of 18th century. But in France and parts of German state, it occurred only during the 19th century. Though in England it came in existence into the second half of 18th century, but in France and parts of German states, it occurred only in the 19th century. Okay, in its wake, new social group came into being, a working class population. So, because of the industrialization, a new group of people came into existence, which were the working class who used to work in these industries. Okay. In Central and Eastern Europe, working class population and middle class made up of industrialists, and the middle class who used to own those industries. Those are the industrialists. Businessmen who used to sell the product of those industries, and the professionals who used to work, who were the expert in those areas and used to work in this industries, who are the professionals who used to look after all those industries. Those are the professionals. Okay. Now, in Central and Eastern Europe, these groups were similar in number till late 19th century. So, till late 19th century, this group was similar in Eastern and Central Europe. It was among the educated liberal middle classes that the ideas of national unity following the abolition of aristocratic privileges gained popularity. So, it was in this population, this educated. So, you can see these are educated people and they are the middle class people. So, this existence of the new middle class concept or this new middle class people, inside their brain emerged the political unity and to grow the political unity, which is nationalism. The idea of nationalism came into their brain, okay, into their head at that time. To abolish, for what? To abolish the monarchical rule. They thought that it would be better if they have all the privileges and if they have equality in the nation or in the state. Okay, so they wanted to abolish the aristocratic privileges, aristocratic rule. Okay, now this is the first point we have completed, the emergence of new middle class and the abolition of the aristocratic privileges. Okay, so it was why the nationalism occurred. First thing, the first point we have completed. Now the second point, what is that? The idea of liberal nationalism. Okay, now what is this liberal nationalism means? So liberal means, liberal has come from the word liberty, which means freedom and right to equality. Equality to have, would have equal rights to speak, to say our thoughts. Okay, to have, we can wherever we want, we can go to pursue or to profess any kind of profession we want. So that is liberty. Liberty means freedom. Freedom from the oppression of the or the tyranny of the autocratic or monarchical rule. Okay, so now liberal nationalism, the idea of liberal nationalism. Okay, now what does it mean? We will read in this second point. Okay, ideas of national unity in early 19th century Europe were closely allied to the ideology of liberalism. So of course they won't be aware of the ideology of liberalism because they never heard a term like that, or they were under the oppression or the tyranny of the aristocracy family or the autocratic monarchical rule. So they won't be aware. It is not possible for them to think about the liberalism. Okay, so before they were allied. Allied means unknown to the ideology of liberalism. Term liberalism derives from the Latin root liber. So the term liberalism derives from the Latin root liber, which means freedom. Okay, so which means free. It's a Latin word. Okay, so it means free. For the new middle classes, liberalism stood for the freedom for the individual and equality of all before law. So, for the new middle classes, liberalism meant what? Freedom for the individual and equality before law. So, liberalism meant for the new middle class meant number one, freedom and equality before law. Okay, now let's read further. Politically, it emphasizes the concept of government by consent. Okay, so politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. Since the French Revolution, liberalism has stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges. A constitution. So, since French Revolution, liberalism, what does it mean? It meant the end of clerical privileges and autocratic monarchical rule. So, liberalism has made an end. It has ended the concept of autocratic monarchical rule and the clerical privileges which are given to the clergy. Okay. A constitution and representative government through parliament. 19th century liberals also stressed the inviolability of private property. So, 19th century liberals, they also stressed on the inviolability of the property, the laws through which they can secure their property. Yet, equality before the law did not necessarily stand for universal suffrage. So, what happened? Though there were equality, but yet equality before the law didn't necessarily stand for universal suffrage. So, universal suffrage means what? The right for all the adults of a country to vote for their elective representative. That is universal suffrage. Okay. And suffrage means to vote for their elected representative. But universal suffrage, there is a difference between universal suffrage and suffrage. Universal suffrage is the right for all the individuals of a country to vote for their elective. It can be male, it can be female, it can be poor person, it can be rich person. Universal suffrage means all the people of a country should vote for the elective representative for whom they want to elect. But suffrage means only voting right of the people which were given to a separate group of people. Okay. Universal suffrage. Universal suffrage means the rights given to all the citizens of a country irrespective of their caste and creed, religion or gender. Okay, they can be male, they can be female. Their caste, creed, religion, to vote for their elected representative. Okay, but suffrage is the only voting right. Suffrage means the right to vote. Though they got suffrage, though they got the right to vote, but they didn't get the right of universal suffrage. Okay, only the rich people who are having land, who are having wealth, they can only vote. Only the male candidates, only who are male. Even females were also looked as a minority. They were thought as a minority. They were not given right to vote for their elected representative. Okay, and only the people who are having land, okay, in the country. Now let's read what they have said of all before law, which marked the first. You will recall that in revolutionary France, which marked the first political experiment in liberal democracy, the right to vote and to get elected was guaranteed exclusively property owing men. So I have just now said you. So when France, they have declared themselves liberal country, they have given the right of voting to the people who are owning property in that country. Okay, and mean without property, and all women were excluded from political rights. So I have said women were looked as a minority. They were not given right to vote, and even the people who are not having land were not given the right to vote. Okay, only for a brief period under the Jacobins did all adult males enjoy suffrage. Only when the Jacobins club were there, the French armies and the Jacobin clubs, at that time all the adults were allowed to vote. Okay, but whenever the Napoleonic rule started, they were not allowed to vote. All the members of the society were not allowed to vote. Only the people who are owning property were allowed to vote. However, the Napoleonic Code went back to limited suffrage and reduced women to the status of a minor, subject to the authority of fathers and husbands. So women were thought as a minority who belongs to either their father before marriage or their husband after marriage. So they were some commodity. They were treated like some commodity whom used to belong to their father before marriage, and after marriage they would belong to their husband. Okay, so they were looked like a commodity. Okay. Throughout the 19th and early 20th century, women and non-property men organized opposition movement demanding equal political right. Okay, throughout the 19th and early 20th century, throughout the 19th century and during the 20th century, these women and the people who are not allowed to vote, who are not having property, they collectively they had done some movements. They did some movement and they demanded justice in case of political equality. Okay. In the economic sphere, liberalism stood for the freedom of markets and the abolition of state-imposed restriction on the movement of goods and capital. Okay. So, in economic sphere, liberalism should mean that they will have freedom to do trade without any customs or duties, isn't it? And abolition of state-imposed restriction, and there should not be any state-imposed restriction that you need to pay this, there should be some sort of restriction. There shouldn't be any sort of restriction if you are having liberty, isn't it? During the 19th century, this was a strong demand of the emerging middle class. So during 19th century, the emerging middle class, who are the tradesmen, who are the businessmen, they demanded this, that there shouldn't be any dues imposed on them. There should not be any restriction imposed on them by the state. They wanted liberty in the economic also. They wanted liberty in their business also. Let us take the example of German-speaking region in the first half of the 19th century. Napoleon's administrative measures had created out countless small principalities, a confederation of 39 states. So Napoleon's principles, they have created a confederation of 39 states. Each of these possesses its own currency and weights and measures. So these 39 states, they were having their own measure, their own currency. Okay, and their own weights also. A merchant traveling in 1833 from Hamburg to Nuremberg to sell his goods would have had to pass through 11 custom barriers and pay a custom duty of about 5% at each one of them. So if in 1833, if someone from want to do trade, from Hamburg to he is going Nuremberg to sell his good, he has to pass through 11 custom duties, 11 taxes he has to pay, and 5% of the money of each good, the money from the each good 5% should be given as a tax. Okay. Duties were often divided according to the weight or measurement of the good. So duties and taxes. Duties means taxes were imposed on the measurement or the weight of the goods. Depending on how much weight, how much it measures, the taxes will be depending on that. As each region had its own system of weight and measure, this involved time-consuming calculation. Now, why it is time-consuming calculation? Definitely it will be time-consuming calculation, because each and every state is having their own currency, own weight, own measure. There are no distinct currencies which all the states should have. There are different in each and every state. See, in our country, India, we are having one currency, and in every state you go, we will have the same currency only. So trading between our state is easy. But if we are having different currencies, then it will be time consuming. Even not only currency, even the weight is also different. The weight is also different. The measurement is also different. So definitely it will be time consuming, isn't it? Now the measure of cloth, for example, was the L. So the measurement of cloth was L. E-L-L-E. Okay. This is a measurement they used to do for cloth. Now we are using meter or centimeters, right? Now that time they used to do ell, which in region, each region stood for a different length. An ell of textile material brought in Frankfurt would get you 54.7 centimeter of cloth. If you buy from Frankfurt, you will get 54.7 centimeter of cloth. If you buy in Mainz, you will get 55.1 centimeter. If you buy in Nuremberg, you will get 65.6 centimeter. So you can see the difference. There is a vast difference. If you are buying in Frankfurt, you are getting 54.7 centimeter. If you are buying in Mainz, you will get 55.1. But if you are buying in Nuremberg, you will get 65.6 or 7. Yes, 65.6 centimeter. In Freiburg, if you buy, you will get 53.5 centimeter. So you can understand the confusion, what type of confusion it is arising. Okay, for the tradesmen, for the businessmen, either they have to face loss or it's time calculation. The calculation can't come in a correct manner. Okay, is it because the weight is also different, the measure is also different, even the currency is also different. Such conditions were viewed as obstacle to economic exchange and growth by the new commercial classes. Of course, it will be an obstacle, right? Obstacle means problem, a disadvantage. Okay. So they will think definitely as an obstacle because they can't trade in inter-trade. They cannot trade from one part to other of the country. Who argued for the creation of a unified economic territory, allowing the unhindered movement of goods, people and capital. Okay, so they demanded for a distinct measurement, distinct weight and distinct currency, so that it doesn't stop the growth of the people and stop the growth of the trade also. In 1834, a custom union or Zollverein is actually a custom union made by the Germans under the Prussians. Okay, so in 1834, a custom union where they actually impose some rules and regulation about the trade or the business. Okay, so it's a union, a custom union. Custom union will be there in each and every country and state. So what they do, they impose and they regulate some rules so that there should not be any obstacle in doing business. So at that time, this custom union, they named the Germans. They made the Zollverein custom union under the leadership of Prussians at the initiation of Prussians. Okay, and joined by the most of the German states, and most of the German states they joined. The union abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currency. Now what this union they have done? They abolished the tariff barriers, the tax barriers. Okay, and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. And there were 30 currencies and they reduced the currencies to 2. Then it came into existence only 2 currencies. Okay, the creation of a network of railways further stimulated mobility. Now later the railways, they created railways, means railway came into existence. Okay, and it helped in the movement, mobility. They can trade easily with the help of the railways. A wave of economic nationalism strengthened the wider nationalist sentiment growing at that time. So this economic nationalism, the nationalism they wanted in the sphere of economy also led to the rise of nationalism, because it blown the sentiments of economic nationalism, isn't it, in the mind of the business classes. Okay, so you understood the first 2 reasons of the rise of nationalism and how the nation state emerged. So in my previous, because the video is becoming very lengthy, if you have any doubt in this the 2 areas, these 2 subtopics, 2 parts, you can comment me down in the comment section below. And if you want me to become means you want me to give you more explanation, you can comment me down. If you like this video, definitely hit the like button and share with your friends if you think it's useful for them. Okay, thanks for staying tuned with us, for watching more informational video like this. Subscribe our channel and always stay tuned with us. Thanks a lot. Bye.